And the US presidential hopeful Donald Trump from the UK has broken the parliamentary website record and has reached nearly 500,000 signatures. Mr. Trump has sparked outrage over his call for Muslims to be banned from entering the US and his claim that some parts of London were so radicalised that police feared for their lives. With me now is Susie Boniface, the Mirror columnist, also known as the Fleet Street Fox. Susie, it's good to see you.
Hello.
Where do you stand on this?
If people want to register their disapproval of Trump, which is the main reason to have any kind of a petition, it's just registering the fact you don't like something, fantastic. And 500,000 people saying we don't know what Trump said, brilliant, well done Britain.
But it means it could be discussed in Parliament, though, if it gets over a certain level.
Let's discuss it in Parliament then, that's what Parliament's for, it's a national debate.
And then they might ban him.
Banning him, I think, is a terrible idea.
Okay, so that's the point.
I think banning anybody who is someone that you ought to be arguing with is a terrible idea. If you ban them, it doesn't stop them thinking those things. You know, we've banned Cliff Richard's songs, we've banned fundamentalists, we've banned all kinds of stuff, banned Class A drugs. These things still happen and they're still out there. If you ban Donald Trump, he's still on Twitter, he's still in the American presidential race, and he's still saying this stuff on the airwaves. But we wouldn't stop him doing it, unfortunately.
But what these people would suggest they're doing is sending a signal that the United Kingdom does not condone his kind of, they would argue, demagoguery.
There are lots of ways of sending that signal.
Like what?
Well, the Prime Minister has already been fairly firm about it. He could be firmer still. We could send Kate Middleton with a harshly worded letter. All kinds of things we could do to show that this is not something that we agree with. But we also got to bear in mind he's running for presidency of the USA, and although that might affect us here, he's not running to be our Prime Minister. He hasn't said these things on the streets here. Our hate laws are about things that happen in Britain. He hasn't said it in Britain. He hasn't actually breached a crime. He hasn't made a crime in Britain. So banning him for a crime that would be a crime here but in a different country wouldn't actually work. It wouldn't be legal. It would make us look daft.
But what about all those Muslims who are, you know, very, very angry about all this?
Let him come over here, because they can't throw eggs at him in America. You know, no one's going to pay an airfare in order to go over there and egg him. Let him come over here and we can all line up and egg him one after another in the good old British way. Let us argue with him. Let us stick him in Trafalgar Square and, you know, laugh at him and mock him, ridicule him, explain to him how he's wrong and why it doesn't work. He also said, you know, this is the way to stop shootings like San Bernardino, to not let Muslims into the country, completely ignoring the fact that one of the San Bernardino shootings was born in Chicago. So nothing he says makes sense. There is a danger when you have someone who is speaking such hateful tripe as Donald Trump is, that other people will flock to him and agree with him. Now, I would argue that firstly, therefore, you know where they are, who they are, and the police can follow them home. I think that's fantastic. I'd far rather that happen than it all goes underground and we don't know what's going on. And secondly, I think if he's such a bigot that if you are inclined to agree with him, you're probably halfway there yourself already. He's probably not persuading you to something you're not already believing. So I don't think he's actually changing anybody's opinions. And what he is doing, in terms of, he is changing some opinions, because those of us who go through life thinking everything's just about okay and we bumble along in our own way, our opinions firm up when someone like this says something this hateful. You know, we start arguing about it, we start defending the alternative view, and if there wasn't someone being this provocative and horrid, we wouldn't defend that view so much. There wouldn't be these 500,000 people saying, no, this is not what Britain's about. That's a good thing about it.
So he's doing us a favour, is he?
In a sense, in a long-winded way that he doesn't realise, and perhaps people here don't realise either, it's making us a little more defensive of our rights and freedoms.
But he could become the most powerful man on earth.
With 1,800 nuclear warheads, yes, and that would be horrific. However,
and the people signing this petition would say, you have no problem with that?
Of course I've got a big, hairy problem with it, literally. But the issue, I think, is what people need to remember, is that although he's in the front running among some of the presidential candidates, if you take out a number of his voters that aren't actually registered to vote, most of his support comes from, or 30% of his support comes from people who aren't actually registered to vote in the first place. You then look at where he is in the runnings, he's actually second or maybe even dropping to third. I think his chance of actually being president is pretty slim. You need to worry about the other Republican candidates, and it's more likely that he's going to splinter off into an independent runner and probably split the right-wing vote, and Hillary Clinton will get in, whether you like that or whether you don't. But we're also a year away from it yet. He's got a long way to go before he screws up again.
Well, we don't know if that's going to happen. Anyway.
It will.
All right, Susie, many thanks. Susie Boniface there, thank you.